Yeah, now we should be able to record audio through the Scarlett into the device. I'm not seeing any sound waves yet. That's a little concerning, but I think it's working. Yeah, I really think it's going to work out. I can't tell. I look quiet. It's like a really quiet input I'm looking at. I'm not crazy about how that input's looking, but that's okay. Oh man, this is a lot of work for setting up just like one track, but I think the more practice we do, the better it'll get, right? One can only hope.
So, hello, welcome, good day. Hope everyone's doing well. This is Dark Rambles, the multi-tier marketing system that is not actually a pyramid scheme, but an inverse rectangle that demonstrates that indeed you don't have to be violating any kinds of social constructs or norms to be making money. It just puts the money right into the consumer's hand, and that consumer is you because you're buying my deal.
That's enough of that. I'm just, like I said, working on mic setup. So welcome. This is me playing around on a more sophisticated system directly through to Pro Tools. I think I've spoken about Pro Tools before and how it's this industry standard that's a very good system. It's been around for, I want to say, 20 plus years, and it works really like strongly if you know what to do. It's a little bit of a complex UI system, but it's got a lot of the benefits of it. There's so much stuff going into it, right? You have so many plugins you can buy, so many like additions to go into it. And for the time, it was kind of it was the industry standard. And I think for music specifically, it's the biggest one. It's a big deal for music. And then it became more of a software, no, just for music. And now I think it's kind of branching into the podcasting space. I'm on the fence about it personally. I think Adobe Audition, I'm a big advocate of, but obviously Pro Tools is the standard. And I think it's in my best interest to learn how to use Pro Tools correctly, right? So currently I'm just trying to speak into this thing, get the sound to sound good, and I'll play around some EQs. So this is, Dark Rambles, I guess, where I'm just going to cover some topics. I mean, for not a very long time. Don't expect this is structured as my usual Lonely Cast content. And I think I'm just going to kick it right off with there's a whole big shortage right now in PS5s and Xbox One X's. We're in the new cycle of consoles. And truthfully, I'm on the fence about it in the sense that there's a huge shortage because of scalping, and this seems to be a cause for... Oh, by the way, scalping, for those of you who don't know, it's you buying a commodity and then selling it for a higher price. That's like the black and white of it, the very simplistic version. It happens all the time. It's like, you buy concerts to a concert, and you don't plan on going to the concert, and then you maybe the ticket costs you $30, you charge $40. That's usually not the case. Usually if there's a bigger demand, the price goes up. I remember Tenacious D when they were on concert. I think a ticket was probably like $60-$70 in my head, I think. And if you wanted to buy it from like a third party, it was about $500. And over the years, with I think hype beast culture and sneaker culture, people want to get stuff that's limited edition, and there's been this new push, I think, in the younger generation to, buy stuff and flip it for a higher price. And in terms of luxury goods, I get it. Like a limited edition t-shirt, like a Supreme deck or a cool pair of sneakers, there's a demand for it because there's so few, it becomes unique. But because of the added addition of bots, where you can then, get robots to essentially help you buy something quicker, is leading to a problem. Anyway, back to the PlayStation and Xbox One. My biggest issue I have with the scalpers at the moment is, well, I'm sure there's some kids who desperately want a new console, to be a part of the cool hip group that has it. The problem I think I have, like the short-sightedness I have of the scalpers, is like it's not helping anybody, one, but also there's no good first edition games on like those consoles. Like very rarely do we have like a must play game straight on, like on demand on these consoles, and it's evident in the case with both the PlayStation and the Xbox in this new generation. There's not really a great day one game that it's like, oh man, you have to play. Now granted, if you're a graphics person and you're really into like the latest graphics trends and the latest the latest graphics and the latest hardware, there is a benefit of like getting these games, because I think a lot of them go from 30 FPS to 60 FPS. So there's an upgrade system. So it's like, yeah, if you want to play Assassin's Creed Valhalla with prettier graphics, or Call of Duty Cold War in prettier graphics and a little bit faster, that's great. But it's not enough for me personally to buy a new console. I'm still waiting for like a game that's going to be exclusive to the consoles that justifies me getting the upgraded version. Like right now, there's no game that's available on the PS5 that I can't already get on the PS4, and I'm just waiting for that. And that's going to be the biggest problem, I think. With the scalping problem, it's like you're not really helping anybody because there's not really a demand. Now you're kind of banking on kids with FOMO. I shouldn't say kids, but adults with FOMO, or people who are maybe in the industry who need to get a console. Yeah, but the scalping thing's opening a lot of ethical questions too. I remember there was an article and the scalpers were saying like, well, if you think about it, people who like make milk, it costs them like 20 cents and they're selling it for $5, but that's very different, right? That's not how like the commodity market works, especially because you didn't make the console. You kind of just sold it and you're trying to make more money. And it's bad. Apparently there's actually shortages of consoles everywhere. Like every time there's a new drop in the console, they're sold out immediately. And it's kind of shocking that we're going to have these, these attics full of 60, people, you're going to go to your grandparents' basement. There's going to be like 60 unopened copies of PlayStation 5s. And obviously there's no incentive for, the retailers to do anything because they're making money regardless. I just am on the understanding that this is not going to help anybody in the long run. If anything, the scalpers, I think, are at a disadvantage because they're charging these ridiculous prices for a console, which once you do your research, isn't exactly worth getting now. I have no need to get a new console right off the bat. And this isn't even going into the rise of PC gaming or other consoles. I personally am still much of a console gamer, but I'm in no position where it's like, man, I really need to get a new PlayStation or like a new Xbox. But of course, once again, that could be the whole, we have younger kids who need this. Like I remember reading once, if you ever read like the Supreme store, read their comments, it seems to be a lot of like, yeah, I waited in line for 3 hours for my kid, so it seems to be like that market. It seems to be like for younger people. So maybe, yeah, there's a bunch of younger kids who want to fit in or want to feel cool or want to brag, and they want to get a console and they're willing to pay premium for it right away. But those of you out there who are on the fence, I really don't think there's any reason for you to get the new console. If anything, this is the perfect opportunity if you're not even in console gaming to get the older ones. I'm sure the PlayStation 4 and Xbox are very affordable at the moment. So that should be what you should be doing. The next semi-topic that I just wanted to discuss was I've been watching Snowpiercer, the TV show, and I've been in and around Snowpiercer for, I guess, a while. So it's for those of you who do not know, many of you will probably know Snowpiercer as the movie by Boon Jong-ho, I think that's his name, who is actually the director for Parasite. And that was a great film starring Chris Evans, like post Captain America, but like before he was huge in like the Avengers. And it's about a train that kind of circles the world and never runs out of battery. But the catch being is this huge like nuclear winter happened, and as it's like all the rich people live in the front, all the poor people kind of live in the back, and there's this big discrepancy in resources and who gets what, and it's kind of this survival apocalyptic story. It's very cool, very unique, very like claustrophobic because it takes place in a train. And before that, it was actually a comic book, which is similar plot, like I said, where apocalypse happens and people flee on a train. Now, the TV show is unique, in my opinion, and I've spoken about this lightly, where I actually don't mind if the subject matter deviates from the new form of media. And the TV show does that, and I think in quite a clever way, because they've essentially taken the questions the comic book and the TV show and the movie had, and then kind of expanded on it. So in the context of the movie, right, and the comic, the train was never designed to be like this like last hope for humanity. It was supposed to just be this like luxurious train that you would travel around in on your own dime, and then last minute a bunch of people got on it during the apocalypse. The TV show changes it that it was actually refitted before the big freeze happened, so it actually makes a lot more sense, like why you're able to like grow fruit and vegetables on the train, why there's cattle on the train. A lot of those like questions, which I think were a bit weird in the show, like movie and the comics, are kind of answered. And on top of that too, that the design of the train was always kind of flawed to me, where I was like, if it's a luxurious train and it's like 1,000 cars long, I think it's that long in the movie too, why not like have a more effective transport system within the train? Like I would either, if it's a custom built train, which is it is, I'd either make it the sides wider, so it's like you could have some kind of rail car system going on it, almost like a train within the train, right? Because that would make things more efficient, because it makes no sense to have to go through every single cart, especially if it's a futuristic train. Now granted, the comic books, it's a very, like, it literally just looks like a train, and in the movie it looks a little bit more futuristic and sleek and sexy, but yeah, the TV show expands on it by being like, oh yeah, so the train's a lot bigger in terms of girth and like in weight, like height. So there's like a sub train that runs underneath it, which answers my question of like, that's great because now if you're going through like, they always talk about like ecosystems and you can't disrupt so much on the train. So it's like, yeah, you don't want people coming in and out of the cattle cart, right? So to fix that, yeah, there's like a station underneath that can take you back and forth. Definitely a show worth watching. I think it does put a good spin on the movie, which the movie, it wraps up very quickly. I recommend it. It's not scary. It's a little gory, but great movie overall. And the TV show expands on it by not still about the people at the back trying to get to the front. To get better resources, but I think it's done in a lot better way by adding a little more drama. It also expands on the worlds, I think, a lot more. So instead of it just being the end of the train and the front, there's like more classes in place, and it kind of just adds a little more depth to the world. So you have like the first class, who are just all the rich elites who don't really need to do much and get all the benefits. And you have like the second class, who I think are people with like hard skills, like you're a doctor, or you're like, I think it's like if you had like you're high enough in the security, or you're a surgeon, you're there. Then it's like third class, which is all like janitorial, mechanical, group, and then like who kind of keep everything running like behind the scenes. And then you have the tailies, who this was kind of new to me in the comics, I think, or not in the comics, in the movie. I always thought it was just like people got on last minute. But yeah, the TV show expands on that. It's like you just have people who kind of got on last minute, who weren't supposed to be on the train, who snuck on or got on, and they're in the carriage section, and they're also part of the ecosystem because they're kind of like free labor that's like kind of semi-starved, but like they're also needed for like chores that people don't want to do, like working on sewage and whatnot. So they're brought up every now and then. No, but great show, Snowpiercer. I definitely recommend checking it out. It's on a season 2 at the moment. I think season 3 got renewed, but everything in COVID is getting delayed. So we take that as it will. I know that the Snyder Cut's coming out, and most people are pretty satisfied about it. We're changing stories now. So the Snyder Cut's kind of out, and I think it's been doing well, or at least it's being received confidently by people at the moment. I honestly, don't know. I want to talk more about like the the two other films. So Zack Snyder kind of shared his how he wanted the Justice League trilogy to kind of unfold, right? Like how we had the Avengers trilogy. Well, the Avengers is weird because the Avengers is like a 4-part movie if you think about it, because it's Avengers, right, where the bad guy's Loki, and then it's Age of Ultron, and then it's Infinity War and Endgame. And I guess you could argue that Infinity War and Endgame are kind of just one movie. That's just long. So it's either a trilogy or it's a four-part movie. The point being is Zack Snyder had planned out what he wanted Justice League to be. And I think it's ambitious. And also I should note, I have no idea what the future of Justice League is. I don't even know if Zack Snyder is still affiliated with DC. He must be. So I don't know if they're just taking a pause on this, or the Justice League movies are inherently canceled. I need to do more research. Once again, this is a ramble thing. So anything I say here could be expanded upon in a more in-depth Lonely Cast show. But I would want to expand on what Warner Brothers' reception has been on the Snyder Cut. And if that means like, oh, we want to move through with the films. Of course, there's a bit of a complication with Ben Affleck no longer being in the Warner Brothers catalog, so I don't know if that throws out, like, do they need to hope that the Robert Pattinson Batman does well, and then they'll just kind of sneak him into Justice League and, like, kind of retcon it and be like, oh, he was in Justice League the whole time. It's not the Ben Affleck Batman, it's the Pattinson Batman. That's all questions that we need to figure out. But what he wanted to do, very similar to Avengers, it's like he would do the first movie, which establishes everything. I don't know if Thanos is introduced. No, he is. He's introduced in, I think, in the first Avengers. So the idea is you introduce the first villain, which is going to be Darkseid, right? That's in DC. The big bad space alien guy who is kind of indestructible, shoots crazy lasers that move in all directions, and he's able to like mind control people with this this algorithm. That's kind of the easy way to describe it. So that was the first movie. That's what we got. And then the second one was going to be, I guess this is like where everything gets bad, where it was, I think that's where Zack Snyder was talking about, like, it would be this, basically the good guys lose and Superman becomes evil because Lois Lane dies, then Darkseid takes control of him, and it's kind of like Avengers and Infinity War, where it's just like it's the guys preparing to fight Darkseid, they fight Darkseid and they lose and all the bad stuff happens. And then the third one was going to be kind of the darkest timeline, where there's like only a handful of superheroes left. Of course, Batman's there because Batman's always kind of like the last one, and I think it was going to be the Flash, the Joker. It's what you see in the it's gonna be it was gonna be like Cyborg and a few other people, and it was the idea was trying to get the Flash to go back in time to stop Darkseid from happening, which is a cool concept. I mean, obviously, Endgame did the time travel thing, but I'm obviously spitballing really quickly here, but I feel like Endgame was not the first movie to do time travel to fix timelines. I'm fairly confident it's been done before in big arcs as well, but I think it would be a cool idea. Once again, I don't know what the future of DC is at all, right? If it's going to be good, if it's going to be bad, or if it's going to be just, if like they're just gonna take a break from it. I don't know if like the superheroes are done, like the cast. Because I know we got a Flash movie coming out. Wonder Woman just had her film come out this year. Like it's just all up in the air. But that's the short of Snyder's Justice League thing. I think it's interesting. Darkest Timeline stuff kind of always upsets me. I don't know. I'm weird like that, where it's like I do like horror movies and violent stuff, but like seeing superheroes die always upsets me. I don't know. That's why there's certain other spin-off comic books that do something similar, where it's like Deadpool kills off the Marvel universe, and I don't like that. It's never been my thing to be like, oh man, the heroes are dying. That's just me though. I mean, some people, I guess the morbid part of it though, it's like, how did they get out of this situation, right? Or how do you face the worst thing? How do they overcome that, especially when the heroes start to fail? But who knows? I think Zack Snyder, from what I understand of the Snyder Cut, which I still have yet to see, it looks like it's been received positively. I think it's a 4-hour film, right? So I'm sure that it's not going to be worse. It's not going to be better. You gotta obviously gauge to what critic is seeing it. If they already don't like DC, already have a thought process behind that. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Snyder Cut. And the future of that franchise. Other than that, it's gonna be curious to see what new video games are coming out. I'm not really excited for the only new video game I'm kind of looking forward to is a guy who consistently plays mostly single player games. It will be, I think, Resident Evil 8, which is great. I've been a big fan, I think, since the 4th game. So I've never been a true Resident Evil fan. I've played 4, 5. 6, which I never finished, and then 7, which I loved, and then I played 2 HD and 3 HD, but I haven't played any of the classic ones. So I'm kind of like that new age 3D Resident Evil fan. But yeah, I'm excited for 8. I will say this is like on the Batman subject. There's like 2 big Batman games coming out. One's Gotham Knights, and the other one is called Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. I think both have the chances of being good. I'm definitely gonna talk about this more in depth in a more like Lonely Cast specific, maybe Deep Splash or something, but candidly, both of them are designed in such a way where it's like multiplayer is kind of a big part of the game, and I think having mandatory multiplayer isn't always the best move. I know it's enticing for a lot of developers because it can make money, especially if you put in those mechanics that aren't exactly ethically good, but some kind of unlocking timeline or loot boxes, which I think are kind of on the out now. It seems to be this unlock timeline. You can make some money off of it. I just find that when you have a game that's made entirely with multiplayer in mind, it just feels different. Like you have a game that's made for single player, like the graphics and the weight and the combat and everything kind of just feels suited to that because you are the only factor. But I feel like when a game's made for multiplayer, it almost feels looser. Like I almost describe it like having like rubber for bones, where it's like everything's almost made to like stretch a little bit more because it's anticipating if someone else were to hop on with you and different, Wi-Fi connections and other glitches that could happen. I just feel the game always feels a little bit weird. It's hard to describe, but I do think building a game with multiplayer in mind, even if you say you can play it single player, does diminish the single player campaign to some caliber, especially when it's a drop off co-op mode that's designed for the single player to be played with a friend. So I'm a little hesitant, honestly, about making these 2 games like these drop out multiplayer kind of games. I just feel like it might feel different or not as good. Now, saying that, Gotham Knights just got delayed, which could be a good sign because I know there's been some talks about. It's obviously for the wrong reasons, but I know some game developers, like even the greedy ones, were like, okay, maybe putting multiplayer in everything is kind of limiting our fan base a bit. So that's just food for thought. Anyway, I don't want to leave it here. This is my ramble session. Just again to work on some editing software. I'm probably going to upload this just for funsies, but yeah, hope you all enjoyed, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next episode of Lonely Cast or another ramble episode. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Much love.